when we say something of value, that actually means value within the society, value within Islam. So when we speak about value within the society, like for example, right now, the phone is a value within our society, right? But if we were to say, for example, a land, not always is it of a value, depends where it is. Number two is that when we say a value within Islam, this is a very important thing to say, because when we say a value within Islam, we're talking about value such as that it cannot be something that is of najas, something that has impurity within it, something that has no value in Islam, meaning, let's say we're talking about a share within a stock company that's selling something haram. That would actually not be of value. Now, the third thing is that scholars actually had differences of opinions on mahr if it were something like an action. Like, for example, that you would work for my business for this amount of time. All right. Or if it were something like a Quran, that you would memorize Surah Al Imran and Surah Al Baqarah, or memorize all the Quran. Scholars actually had differences of opinions regarding that, simply because it's not something that you can contain, and it's not something that is necessarily of a let me call it like of a value that you can necessarily touch or feel, or you can move. And what if the person doesn't do it? What are you going to do? Tell them, oh, make up the hifz later on? And the reason for the differences of opinions between scholars, because of the hadith when the Prophet ﷺ actually told the Sahabi that that the Prophet ﷺ told him that I would get her married to you with what you have, with the Quran that you have. Now, here's the thing. Some scholars considered that to actually say with the Quran that you had memorized, is that exclusive because the Prophet ﷺ just knew he was a good man of a good quality? Or is that something that is not necessarily exclusive to that particular Sahabi, but other people can also be included within it? Now, what is recommended? Don't let that be the mahr, because if that's based on also the Hanafi madhab, don't let that be the mahr, because when something goes wrong, you want something to help support you. Not all people, I wouldn't recommend being too utopian, all right? In our times with fasad al-dhimam, you want something in where they will basically feel the accountability. I know that not always can someone feel the accountability. If somebody is bad, they'll be bad regardless if they memorize the Quran or not. We know that. But you want something that can contain the situation. To memorize the Quran is not necessarily something that can give you the backup if a divorce were to happen. He memorized it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in his effort. Wa Allah yuzil khair. But how is that going to help you? When a divorce were to happen, if a divorce were to happen, how is that going to give you the backup when you are trying to find rent, when you are trying to, find a new job, relocate in a new state, all these different things? That's what you want the alimony for. That's what you want the mahr for. It's to give you the backup if something were to go wrong, until you would relocate, stand on your feet again, because you're going to be spending a lot of time really away from getting the means to getting a job, or at least financing yourself. And especially during our time today, where a lot of the family members, the brothers, the fathers, etc., are not going to be there as much as we were expecting, as much as Islam would tell them to give you that support. So my recommendation, don't go to utopian, live the reality. You want to do it, It is a considerable opinion with fuqaha.
I have a follow-up question on that.
Mhm.
Okay. So then, according to you, like, what do you think is like an appropriate amount to ask for, like, talking about money specifically?
I can't recommend a certain number because it really depends on the situation, the person. There's so many different things. I can't recommend a number. At the end of the day, is that if a person is what we call ibn halal, if he's a good man, he's a good man. He will follow the principle. If he's a man that lacks principle, even if your mahr was $1 million, he's going to lack principle, even if your mahr was $1 million. Money does not necessarily put people on ground, except sometimes. That's why you've got citations and tickets, because some people, hey, they don't want to pay the money. So what they'll do is they'll drive safely because they know that there's a consequence. You see what I mean? And that's why in the first question I said, hey, you want something that will put the backup for you, but the mahr is not to put them in accountability as much as it is to give you the backup in case something were to happen. What is the number? That's really based on your culture, based on your circumstance, based on your situation. So it really depends on the person.
And I've also heard like, I don't know which opinion is the correct one. Like I've heard some people say like the mahar is explicitly only for the girl to decide, and then some people, I guess, will say like, no, it's like the parents' responsibility to decide for their daughter.
So the mahr is the girl's property, not the family's property. But if the father wanted to also be included and say, yeah, well, I want the mahr, $25,000 for her and $5,000 that's going to be going for the family and for us, this can be something agreed upon. It doesn't have to be in where, yes, it has to be the girl to say, this is how much I want, this is how you have to pay it on installments, etc. It's really the family to work it out, to help her figure out if something were to happen, she needs a backup. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily just the girl on her own. If we were to say the girl on her own, many times the girls don't really know what expenses are out there, what the finances are looking like out there. Who really knows? It's the person that's covering those finances. It's the father. He's the one that's covering those finances. But if she already has this maturity to decide the finances, she can decide that too. There has to be, it's a conversational thing. It's not, hey, it's my right and you don't have a right to say. It's something that the family makes the conversation about. I hope I answered that one.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yes.
My question is, and some of them you already answered, is a lot of families nowadays, financial issue is what breaks marriage or cause a lot of problems. And it comes with, if the wife works, her earning is, the husband has a right, if he say, okay, you're not going to work because I have a right to say that you don't have to go work. Otherwise, you have to be
Right.
contribute all your.
So generally speaking, if she wants to work, all right, there are a number of different things that they have to keep in mind. Number one is that if she insists that she wants to work, she should have actually put it in the marriage contract. If it wasn't in the marriage contract and she wanted to go to work, but he saw that the situation within the household is not fitting to go to work, then he can actually say, sorry, I don't want you to work. And she would have to obey him. Number three, what if she was working? Does she have to pay part of her income to basically establish the household? Differences of opinions between scholars. First opinion, she would have to pitch in equally with the income with her husband. Second opinion, half the income that she's making. Third opinion, 2/3. Fourth opinion, fourth, fifth opinion, based on what they agree on. Now, here's the thing, is that the best and the most preponderant is really none of these have any evidence. So what is the preponderant? It's really based on what they agree on. So if they agreed before marriage, hey, I'm going to be making 4 grand, you're going to be making 5 grand, and I'm going to be pitching in with this much, and you're going to be paying this much or whatever. So they would agree beforehand. Agree. What does it look like? But here's one thing. Just keep in mind, all right? Just keep in mind, all right? And of course, it's a case by case. This is not, what I'm going to be saying is not a situation and a scenario that fits all. And not all men deserve this kind of, I would say, honor in where, hey, I trusted you with my ird. How can I not trust you with my man? I understand that. Not all deserve this type of honor to tell him, hey, I trusted you with my ird. How would I not trust you with my man? Not all deserve that. But at the same time, if he's a man of good akhlaq, if he's a man of good deen, if he's a man of principle, I would say don't let the money be more valuable than the person himself. At the end of the day, there are some things that money cannot buy, and that is a person of principle. A person of principle is a person that is beyond value. If he's a good man with akhlaq, if he's a man with deen, money should not be a place of dispute. But that doesn't fit everyone. So I hope I answered that one. Go ahead. Allah barik.
Oh, I don't know how to word this question, but
Wait, Afan, before you mention it, who is this question for?
oh, anybody whoever wants to
Question 2.
yeah. Whoever wants to answer. So in light of Roe v. Wade being overturned, there's like a lot of division within the Islamic communities. And I'm seeing like a lot of the Hanafi madhab regarding abortion kind of being reported. And then the Yaqeen Institute's like misinformation. So I just wanted some clarity on the, what is it called? The what most scholars agree on regarding abortion in Islam. Just some clarity on that.
So generally speaking, abortion in Islam, the default ruling is that abortion is actually haram. All right. This is the default ruling. The exception is only when, number one, is that the exception is only when the woman's life is in danger. All right. And then we would go in certain details about, well, when is it? So we're looking at 120 days, before 120 days, this is one of the opinions. Before 120 days, one of the opinions. This is not the let me say the majority. 120 days, that is not as a type of a birth control. Oh, I wasn't ready for this pregnancy and actually do an abortion. The 120 days, that's when there is a necessity, when there is an issue. Maybe the woman was taking some kind of a medication that she wasn't supposed to be getting pregnant from. And the doctor says that the baby is high risk of getting some kind of a deformality or whatever it is, all right? So then we're going to then reconsider. It's 120 days, all right? Within the 120 days, or the mother's life is at risk. If she were to get pregnant, she's at high risk of some certain diseases, etc. That's 120 days. We'll say, okay, high risk. We'll then have to ask the specialists and say, what is the risk? Is there a cure? We don't just jump right away. Oh, that's it, abort the baby. No, we'll ask, is there a cure? What are the chances of this cure helping? what are the chances of this cure actually putting the baby's life at risk before we jump, even if it's 120 days, before we jump and say, okay, let's abort the baby. All right. Now, the second part, if it's after 120 days, all right, only if the mother's life is at risk, only if the mother's life is at risk, do we actually say, okay, let's talk to the specialist and see what the specialists say in terms of this illness or whatever it is that's causing that risk. And then that's the only time after discussing it with specialists in certain diseases, etc., where we would say, okay, yes, we might actually consider 120 days. A child having or prone to having some deformality, even after 120 days, if there is, he might actually have some kind of a heart issue or a kidney, liver issue, it's not permissible to abort a baby that is 120 days of pregnancy. Even if the doctor said, yeah, we're looking at the scanner and we're seeing, or whatever, ultrasound, whatever it is, we're seeing that the child actually has an enlarged gland or whatever it is, then in that situation, we would not say abort the baby unless the abnormality is actually it anyways, the child is not terminally ill, but the child anyways is going to be born anyways with, okay. Unless the child is going to be basically born dead anyways. All right, that's a different situation. All right, so the baby, they're seeing that, he doesn't even have, let's say, certain parts in the body. They're completely gone. We're not talking about a hand because you can be born without a hand. But if, let's say, something that there's no heartbeat, there's no brain, there's no whatever it is, okay, it's different than having a certain other abnormality. All right. Now, this does not include rape. Rape is not included in here. And that was the mistake that Yaqeen and Dream Sheikh did. Rape does not give an open green card justification to actually abort a baby, not before 120 days and not after 120 days.
So that's the Islam stance.
That's Islamic stance. Rape in itself, to just think of it as, rape, it gives you a green light to actually just abort the baby before 120 and after 120 because it's rape, that is not mentioned by any scholar, period. Not by any scholar. All right. Now, the only time when we would say rape, that's a case by case. If the woman's life was in danger and we've got a number of different things, then that's when we would say, okay, well, let's look into the situation. And we would look into the legal maxims that we discussed before, the DNAIM, and we'll look into that. And then it becomes a fatwa to be given case by case. And that's one thing that Yaqeen Institute and Dream Sheikh actually did in their article, is that they did not explain that, hey, just like when you look at the medical websites, it can be a Mayo Clinic. What do they say? This is not a diagnosis. See your local specialist. Same thing. They were supposed to mention that, hey, this is not to basically copy and say, okay, here it is. Here's my fatwa for myself. This was supposed to be written as this, go to your local specialist in fiqh to basically help you determine whether this applies to you or not. Because this is a fatwa. This is an ijtihad. This is a case by case. There is no general ruling. And then we say, okay, there we go. Rape is permitting right there abortion. This is not true. This is not true. This is not mentioned by any faqih, not whatsoever. And I would say Reem Sheikh and Yaqeen Institute, by all means, let them get angry. They were influenced by the feminist rhetoric, simple and clear and straightforward. يزعل اللي يزعل ويرضى اللي يرضى. الحق حق. Go ahead, my dear.
Just to understand, so it was not mentioned 120 days or after 120 days in case of a rape, you cannot, like regardless of what, you cannot abort the baby
No, I didn't say regardless. I said 120 days.
before.
Before 120 days, we'll look into the situation. We'll do a case by case. It's a case by case to see, is her life in danger? Because it can happen if her life is in danger. It can happen. All right.
For mental health.
Mental health, so many different things would contribute. Then we would discuss a number of different things if it's 100 before 120 days. And that's why we would need to actually see, it's not a fatwa, let me copy and paste. We would have to see the situation, evaluate the situation, and actually discuss it with specialists to see what is the consequence. What does that actually mean? What is the implication? See what I'm saying? We don't just jump, okay, that's it. Oh, yeah, let's rape. Let's go ahead and do an abortion. We would have to look into the circumstance. And that's why I'm saying is that to actually just write out a fatwa statement like that without making it clear that no, these are cases that require a fatwa and from a mujtahid, from a scholar, and many times not one, but a whole majlis, by a whole majlis, to mean like a whole council of muftiyin to actually look into the case. We need reports, etc., to actually give the final report. What does this mean? The impact, etc. But we don't just jump right there. This is really dangerous to just think, oh, rape. It's just an open green card like that. Wa iyyakum. I think Firdaus, was it? Firdaus wanted to say something.
So this kind
Right. So here's one thing, is that generally speaking, a person is not supposed to be sharing their sins. And sharing the sin is a sin in itself. Rasulullah actually called it al-mujahara. To actually announce that you had committed a sin is a sin in itself. So the only time where you have to share that information is if you had actually, let's say, you had actually been infected with something. And then there's a high chance of infecting it to someone else. Like an STD, absolutely. If you have an STD and you're going to get married, make sure that the other person understands and knows that you actually have this STD. And of course, they're going to know that you were in a relationship before. You did tawbah, you didn't do tawbah, etc. But at the end of the day, if you have something that it's not, why? Because there's a difference between al-ma'asiyah and it being between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a sin that is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a sin that is right now expanding to al-abd, expanding to people. The sin that it's expanding to people, it must be that the abd himself, one, gives the consent and understands the implication of that. So if there is an STD, explain it to the person. Hey, I was contaminated with this and this. I actually did this. I'm taking these medications right now. It flares during these times, whatever it is. Then you would have to clarify it. And this is what it means. And then do your homework of how it affects your marriage, your relationship, etc.
So then if they share that sin with you and the sin, do you also earn that sin
You earn the sin for what?
for them like sharing that sin with you? Or is it just on them?
No, it's because if, hold on, did they share the sin?
I mean, sorry, they shared like information of them committing that sin with you. So then is that sin? then
Is it
also on
did they share it because of an STD?
I mean, I'm just kind of asking generally.
If they shared a sin that no one knew about, and there's no STD, there's none of that, all right, and they shared it with you, then that what they had done was actually haram. All right?
But
But-
I wouldn't get a sin for that. would I?
No, you wouldn't. They're the ones that shared it. All right? They're the ones that shared it. They're held accountable. All right? Now, if they would share it because there was an STD involved or etc., and they told you not to say anything about it, but you went and actually told your OB, you said, can you tell me what that means? Can you explain to me? Is there an is there some kind of a vaccine that I could take or something? What can I do, etc.? That's not sharing it. That's still permissible. You see what I'm saying? So you can't say, I don't want to share it. No, or you wanted a fatwa regarding it. All right, that's permissible.
Sheikha, I think a follow good question would be, let's say you ask them, did you sleep with someone? Right? There's no STD, no nothing, but you asked for it straightforward. Can that person lie?
First of all, to ask somebody, did you sleep with someone, is actually in itself a type of a qadf. It's actually haram. It's qadf. It's insinuating that the person committed zina. It's qadf. Stan bil arad. But unless the person is known to have these types of relationships, all right, in other words, then they had become fasiq. Al-fasiq, their ard, they put it in exposure because they're announcing it everywhere. All right. So to actually, they have that history. That's a different situation. They have a history of, let me say, illicit behavior. So they brought it to themselves. This is a fasiq. This person is announcing it. So then that wouldn't be qadh for them. See what I'm saying? But can I ask somebody that doesn't have a history of being fasiq, doesn't have a history of doing these kind of things, and what should they respond? Generally speaking, if it was a sin that they committed between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in other words, they committed that sin, no one else knows about it. All right. First of all, you're not supposed to be asking that question. Second of all, they're not supposed to be answering that question, because that's a sin between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And let's say a sister committed something like that, don't answer it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hid it for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala satara alayki, don't announce it. By asking, you would be putting yourself in a situation where you're bringing dishonor to yourself. You understand me?
What about asking about a history of addiction, if they have a history of addiction?
You can ask that question. That's a totally different thing. History of addiction is different than a history of zina. All right. So you can ask, you have the right to ask about that. All right. Because zina is different. All right. So if you wanted to ask about history of addiction and even search, you have the right to ask, and you have the right to search, and you have all the right. And if someone knows that, yes, this person has a history of addiction, and you come and ask me, do you know if this person has a history of addiction? And I have the responsibility, if I already know, to actually have that amana. There's level 1, which is al-Ghazali, and he said that he would actually recommend, instead of revealing their sin, to actually say something like, I don't really recommend him for you. That's step 1. But if she still doesn't get the picture, I said, I don't recommend him for you, but she still is insisting that he's just the guy she's always dreamed of. And I'll say, he doesn't have the best history. And if she still doesn't get the picture and insists and is giving her parents a headache, he's the guy and no one but this guy, then in that situation, I can come forward and say, well, did you know that he has a history of addiction? I can come forward. You see what I'm saying? All right, go ahead, Bishara.
If you know someone who's doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing, like some fahisha thing, and this person and you used to be friends a long time, even though you kind of aware what they're doing, but they keep coming to you and they want to, hang out with you, or can you tell someone, can you ask advice what to do, or someone knowledge about like you, like I say, okay, what should I do with this situation?
Okay, we're gonna let Ustad Sharah answer, inshallah, just to make sure that everybody has knowledge.
لا خليك لا مش خليك. So can you actually, when it comes to relationships with people,
And this is a female, not a male, so.
right, when it comes to relationship with people, you're going to look at their impact on your deen in general. All right. If you're able to get them into the fold of da'wah, into the fold of Islam, into the fold of let me say, piety, then get them within that fold. But if getting them into the fold of, let me say, your zone is going to put your children exposed to things you don't approve of or Islam doesn't approve of, then in that situation, excuse yourself politely without harming the other person. Because preserving your family and preserving your deen actually comes first and precedes preserving other people's deen. So the relationship is all based on your capacity to preserve your deen and preserve then the other person's deen. So it depends on that person, whether it's an old friend or a new friend. All right.
Someone you didn't know their background, later on, as your friendship with girls, you learn and stuff, and like, okay, but this person, you feel like they cannot function without you, they're like constantly calling you. And I'm like, you either stop this or we're, and I'm like,
Bishara, let me tell you one thing.
Can I ask, what I'm saying is it okay I ask someone to say, like, I'm not naming the person, but I say, okay, I'm in this situation, is it haram for me to talking about that person, say, okay, this person is doing this, what shall I do? But even saying that isn't haram for me.
Bishara, remember this, all right? If you look at the earth and you look at the universe, everything has an orbit. The sun has an orbit. The stars have an orbit. The planets have an orbit. Even within the molecule, electrons have an orbit. Everything has an orbit. You have to also create your orbit. There are certain people that should not go into your orbit because your orbit, there's a certain gravity for it. And that gravity is the deen. If somebody else is taking you outside of your orbit, reject politely. Everything has an orbit. Even if somebody is constantly calling you, etc., reject politely if you feel that they're taking you out of your priorities orbit, your deen, your nafs, your aql, your ird, your mal. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So you have to organize there are certain people you just have to cancel out without any hesitation. Without any hesitation, you just have to, khalas, that's it. Cancel them out and block, and that's it. And there are certain people, I can put them inside my orbit as long as they're going with me. As long as they're coming with me, with my orbit, where I'm going around, La ilaha illallah. If they're not coming and following along in my orbit of La ilaha illallah, sorry, time for you. Get out of my orbit.
No, I was just worried about asking the advice, even saying like, alhamdulillah, that's what
the people that don't put boundaries are the people that are going to have اللي بيسوى واللي ما بيسوى jumping into your area. The people that are worth in the people that are not worth jumping into your area. You put fence, and the more valuable things you have at home, the more security you will have around you. And that's the same thing. Don't invite anybody in your home, and don't invite anybody in your life. There are certain people that they don't go around with you with your orbit of La ilaha illallah. Simple. Here we meet, here we end. That's it. وإياكم.
I have a question.
Oh, Khadija, you're supposed to answer, not me.
No, I have a question. So let's say, can you do that to your own family?
So generally speaking, to your own family, إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان. Remember that ayah? وإيتاء ذي القربى. There's العدل. All right? There's العدل. If العدل is not attainable, then you've got الإحسان. And then إيتاء ذي القربى. Now here's one thing, is that there's a difference between the relationship with my family than the relationship with the people outside. Because the relationship with my family actually regards Silat al-Rahim. But if Silat al-Rahim is affecting my deen, I can minimize it too. So how much do I minimize it to? I minimize it with my brothers and sisters differently than how I minimize it with my parents. Why? Because with parents, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, صاحبهما في الدنيا معروفة. In the صاحبهما في الدنيا معروفة. I still have to maintain بر الوالدين with my parents. But with my brothers and sisters, if they're affecting my deen, I would still have to do صلة الرحم, but minimize it to the point that it's not affecting my children, not affecting my deen, in a way لا إفراط ولا تفريط, in a way that does not cause ظلم. So what is the limit? The limit is if you're able to have الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر, if you're able to do for ordering for what is good, forbidding what is bad, if you're able to do that limit, and it, yes, they might actually talk, they might actually dislike some of the things that you're doing, limit it within that. If you're able to have an influence, then maintain that relationship. All right. If you're not able to have that influence, and the influence is starting to work differently, what's happening? The gravity is working differently. Instead of the gravity being La ilaha illallah, you're starting to feel that the gravity is coming from the outside. Your kids are starting to get influence from their cousins. Then in that situation, I'll say no, limit it, because حفظ الدين, preserving your deen, is مقدم على sunnah, and the sunnah and the صلة الرحم. You see what I'm saying? حفظ الدين, حفظ عقيدة الأولاد, etc. The حفظ, the preservation of the kids' عقيدة, the kids' deen, etc. is actually precedent. It precedes. So in that situation, I'll say, limit that. Don't totally cut it off. Limit it and preserve your orbit for preserving your deen. Did I answer that one?
Yes. Thank you.
And at the same time, even when we go to continue the ayah, and Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba. At the same time, even when they transgress their limits when it relates to your dunya, basically, you just don't have a way of talking. You're just this, brother and sister stuff. So in that situation, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha' al munkar wal baghi. Al fahsha' is oral transgression. Oral transgression. Al-munkar is when you actually get into that violence area. Al-baghi is including maybe financial. We're starting to then go in real, not just oral transgression, but now we're starting to get really beyond financial, and we're starting to harm each other and speak about each other's reputation, etc. Then that's that. Let me call it the absolute oppression. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid all of them. The oral transgression, the physical transgression, and any type of oppression. Got it? All right. Go ahead, my dear.
Does that also apply to like cousins, aunts?
Same thing, same thing, same thing. Aunts, uncles, the parents are an exception, but the same goes to the rest. Maintaining your deen, keep a relationship. How are you, Amti? How's everything? Everything good? You need help? I'm there to help whenever you need me. Hey, I'll give you financial support if that helps, etc. But if they're going to start affecting your deen and your kids' deen, we'll see you next Eid, inshallah. Right? We'll see you next Eid. All right.
But can you distance yourself though? I mean, what I meant is like, let's say, I mean, this is becoming to the point where like Udin, let's say you don't even want to see them next Eid. Is that, I mean, just call them.
No,
Is that okay?
let me tell you one thing, Khadija. You know, there's القلوب, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes it. القلوب, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes them. Right now, you know, your brother may not be on, you know, on his deen, but later he'll change. And there's something with that is part of our fitrah, is that the ones that we absorb their words are the ones that we love. Are the ones that we love. If you entirely disconnect yourself from them, you just let them be prone to nothing but fitna and shaitan. You could be the only one that they will be hearing from any khair. So I'll just say what is khair. And there's no way that we can necessarily just, you know, every single time I meet with them, I'm just going to be telling them about tafsir and fiqh and all that. No. Show me that you care and ask me about my kids. Show me that you care and ask me about my mom. Show me that you care and ask me about my health. Show me that you care and ask me about how my sinus is doing or whatever, my allergy is doing. That's a way of showing care. So when I see that you care, my heart will little by little have that sensation towards you and will listen to what you're going to tell me about deen. But you won't have your influence on people's deen if they don't feel that you care about them and that you care about their children and that you care about their health. So that's actually your pathway to speaking about deen. Even the Prophet ﷺ, when he was with Jabir ibn Abdullah, what did he say? هل تزوجت? تزوجت. He said, yeah, I did get married. Was he thayyib or bikr? Was she a virgin or not virgin? That would be during our time. You'd be like, wait a minute. Excuse me? Right? But these questions, and then he said, thayyib. He said, why didn't you get married to a virgin? It would have been better for you. And he said, well, I have sisters and my mom died and I want someone to be in place of their mom. So the Prophet ﷺ makes that dua for barakah. All right. Now that's the thing, is that you take it from there in where that relationship the Prophet ﷺ was doing. And Ali ibn Abi Talib and Ali ibn Abi Talib and Fatima get in a disagreement. And Ali ibn Abi Talib, he gets angry and just goes and sleeps in the masjid. And of course, they didn't have carpets back then. So the Prophet ﷺ comes over to basically talk to him. Hey, what happened? What's going on? And then Ali ibn Abi Talib is all filled with turab, filled with dust. And the Prophet ﷺ tells him, stand up, Abu Turab. Get up, Abu Turab. He was not being derogatory or using any derogatory terms here. He was trying to, it's tahabbub. It's a ta'aluf. It's bringing in a relationship. It really makes a different relationship. When you actually show that you care, they will really listen. They will really listen. Even in the ayat, you will see how the relationship, even with the anbiya, where they were telling them, Sayyidina Nuh was telling him, يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا وَيَمْدِدْكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ وَبَنِينَ. He was telling him, hey, you'll get these bounties of water coming to you, you'll get more this. And what is he connecting them with? He's connecting them that, hey, the dunya that you'll you'll get better of it. And that's the same thing. In order for you to have your influence on your family, even if they're far away from deen, reach out to their hearts. There's no way that you can reach to changing any argument unless you reach out to the heart. كسب القلوب جزء من كسب المواقف. Embracing hearts and reaching out to the hearts is actually part, and it is what will get you to changing the arguments. I hope I answered that one. I'm sorry, you guys.
Any other questions? Yes, Subhan.
What is the ruling of a sister that does not have income traveling outside the country to see? Or even for Umrah as well?
Should I have to answer?
You have. All right. So generally speaking, the Prophet ﷺ actually said, whoever believes in, of course, that is including women, believes in Allah and Judgment Day, should not travel 3 days, that is a distance of 3 days, without a mahram. So why not travel without a mahram? Well, that's really because securing ird is actually more important. It's securing wealth, or a degree that is going to get you into securing wealth. Now, what if the parents or the father was to go to, let's say, that area that you're going to study in and actually see that it's safe, and actually have your brother with you, or actually have a group of sisters with you? This is actually a considerable opinion. And the reason why some of the scholars actually regarded that as a considerable opinion. So saying the place, the area, it's safe, it's where she's with a group of Muslim sisters, not any women, but a group of Muslim sisters. We've got another family nearby with her, etc. Then in that situation, this is a considerable opinion. And some of the scholars that actually considered that opinion, all right, they actually based it on a hadith. The hadith was
I'm coming.
yeah, bad things happen. All right. They actually based it on a hadith. The hadith was narrated by Adi ibn Hatim, and that the Prophet ﷺ was telling Adi ibn Hatim that there's going to come a time, and he was actually telling him that if you live long enough, and he told him that you will see al-la'ina traveling from al-Hira to Bayt Allah, not in fear of anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is she doing? She's basically doing Hajj. Now, here's one thing, is that al-la'ina is an older woman. And what is she doing? She's basically doing Hajj. All right. So some of the scholars actually said, well, he didn't say that there was a mahram with her. So some of the scholars derived from that hadith and said that this is an evidence that if there was security, that's all about security. If there was security, if there was security for her deen, and that she was with a group of women to help her maintain her deen, that's permissible. Yet, majority of the scholars actually regarded that is a nonsense derivative. What does that mean? They said, this doesn't make sense. They said, because the hadith was not laying out a ruling. The hadith was laying out a future thing that will happen. Just like he said, talidul amata rabbataha. It doesn't mean that is permissible. You see what I'm saying? So the majority of scholars said that no, it's not based on that. Now, I'm just laying out the fiqh thing over here just to let you know that I am aware of that opinion and what they based it on, which hadith, etc. But the most important thing that I would say is that right now we're in an age, there's this rush to get a degree, to get a secure job, to get better income. And then we're in an age where it's all about getting money and making that be our first priority. In Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you it's your deen that is your priority. It's your nafs that is your priority. It's your aql, it's your ird that is your priority. So securing your chastity, securing your deen is actually more important than getting a degree and getting a job. So Islam tells you, even if we're going to leave off, the discussion in the hadith, etc., Islam tells you there is a vertebra in how you see and how you evaluate the system that surrounds you. In our day and age, it's all about the opposite. Remember DNAIM? It's all about money, sex, and then what? Education and degrees, and then life, and then last, if you have time for deen and you have time for yoga and spirituality, then keep that on the side. In Islam, no, it's the opposite. So it's about time that we redefine our priorities and consider a deen first. We've seen many girls, Pennsylvania, Harvard, Yale, and lose their deen there. So you got a degree, but you lost your deen. What benefit? What was the benefit really? So you got a degree in, who knows, neuroscience and whatever it is, and you lost your deen. What is that degree going to be really guaranteeing you? Just a job, just money, a nice home, then what? You're going to end up تحت التراب. دين والعمل الصالح يرفع. Considering our priorities and the way we see things through the lens of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most important thing. I hope I answered that one. Go ahead, my friend. Reach the age of puberty. And it's not enough to just say reach the age of puberty, because you also want him to be Rashid. It's not just an issue of a couple hairs on the mustache, okay? All right? You can have a man with a beard, but aql asfur, alhamdulillah. Seriously, Wallahi al-Azim, you can have a man with a beard and his brain and is really just a bird. It just thinks about, getting a couple foods and buying a couple of name brand stuff. No, you want somebody that understands what it means to support my sister, what it means to give her security, what it means to help her make the right decisions and maintain her deen. All right? You guys were supposed to ask her a lady.
Okay, we're gonna end it there for the questions. If you have any questions, the other one was the last question, then this one, and then she has a question. She has a question. Inshallah. Okay.
I can't leave any question unanswered.
They can come up to you, Sheikha. Yeah, inshallah. So we're gonna end it there. Inshallah, we are going to pray, inshallah, Salat al-Asr all together, inshallah. We have a little musalla here. We have our sisters program that will be launching the week after Eid. If you are interested in signing up and registering, we will send you an email, bi'idhnillah. It is a 2-year program, bi'idhnillah, inshallah. So make sure. We will finalize that and we'll include it in the email as well, inshallah. If you have any questions, please feel free to come up to one of us, بإذن الله. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. We thank you for everything. Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair for coming. Assalamu alaikum.
So you guys can ask the Sheikh.
You know what? Let me just look at these questions right here really quick. So this sister is saying, are you able to ask if there's addiction of intoxication, porn, etc.? I think we answered that one. What is the opinion on getting married during college? Wallah, I really recommend it. I very much recommend getting married during college. There's a lot of fitna. You can delay pregnancy until you finish your degree. I very much recommend it, because right now there's so much fitna, and And right now, the best and most important thing to help you maintain that fitna is really getting a good supportive husband.
So
And
when you say delay pregnancy, you and your husband have to agree on that, right?
yeah, absolutely. So just make it clear before you go into that, before marriage.
What are valid reasons for delaying pregnancy?
Any reason. Any reason.
You want to enjoy your honeymoon.
Want to enjoy honeymoon, that's okay. You want to,
Get to know the person.
you want to tour and what is that?
Brush your hair.
Madagascar, whatever it is, that's okay. That doesn't have to be a reason.
It's between you and your husband.
Between you and your husband, however you guys, yeah.
Even if
That's up to you. Even if I just want to stay in good shape, and I'm not in a rush to get all these marks and obesity.
Oh, I
and
have a
all that.
question, Sheikha.
We are live, by the way,
Oh, okay, that's a real question though.
okay?
When you say live, I was like, okay, so let's say someone is trying to have twins. Is that allowed for you to do fertilization?
There are differences of opinions between scholars for the IVF in terms of one, choosing the baby's sex, basically. Two, in order to get more than one. In order to get more than one, they don't necessarily just use the IVF. They can actually give you something called Clomid that will basically increase the chances of basically fertility and basically make you produce more and etc., egg release and stuff. And that increases the chance of you getting twins. So there's something, doesn't have to be just IVF. They can give you something else.
Yeah, but
There's something else.
Islamically, can you do that?
Islamically, like I said, for the IVF, there are differences of opinions between scholars because when we speak about IVF as the most important thing, let me say right now, most of the Majami' Fiqhiyya will consider that it is permissible under one condition, that it is only from the husband. Number two is that it is done by majmu'a or jama'a mu'tamana, people that are safe and will only be considering that it's only from the husband and will only be uncovering the awrah needed when necessary. And then in other words, they're basically being really careful and serious about the egg and the embryo and all these, well, not embryo, but the egg and the sperm and etc., to make sure that all the necessary requirements to make sure that it is from the husband is basically there, and that no more uncovering is done than what is needed. Okay, so whether that IVF was being done for a woman that is trying to get a baby or whether she's trying to get twins, all right, it's the same thing.
So you can get 8 babies one time.
I don't know if you wanted to follow Nadia's footsteps, but all
I'm
right.
just asking though. Yeah, I'm just
Nadia
asking.
has 8?
Yeah.
Octomom,
Yeah,
yeah, that
8.
Octomom.
Yeah,
Nadia's,
Nadia, yeah. She
yeah.
has 8 kids.
yeah, so,
Yeah, 8 kids.
yeah.
Oh,
yeah, so.
but is that allowed though? Is that allowed? Is it permissible? Or do you do all the shurut,
Here's the
all
thing,
conditions?
before we say it's allowed, I don't know if health-wise, if this is actually healthy for you to do. So before we say it's allowed, we first have to see if it's safe to do so on the mother.
Okay.
All right. And usually they don't necessarily give you 8 like that because they will end up, in the ICU for some time because you can't really carry 8. All right. But at the end of the day is that, can you actually have more than one? That depends on what the medical studies actually say in that regards. So if it's dangerous, then we will say you can't do it. So that's based on the experts and what they will tell us.
Okay.
All right. So they're going to be determining. Yes, ma'am.
Regarding
By the way, the class is recorded. Yes, it is. Go ahead, my dear.
regarding the marriage contract, is it permissible to add a point regarding the child custody? Like if there's something you guys agree upon, for example, if we say if we were to get divorced, we will have shared custody of the children. Is that something permissible to do?
So here's the thing. When we speak about child custody, this is a right that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it a joint custody over the children in the beginning. The only time when one of the parents will lose custody is if and when they are not qualified to be the caretakers for that child. But even in American law, in secular laws, you don't simply lose your parental right because of you not being qualified to be a parent. So what does that mean? Right? Let's say this parent was abusive. Right? Let's say this person was abusive to the child. No one can take away the parent from being a parent to the child. But what they will do is that there will be this person that's called guardian ad litem, and the guardian ad litem will basically evaluate to see whether this is dangerous, etc. And then the guardian ad litem will basically raise the report to the judge. All right. The guardian ad litem's report will basically help the child know whether it's safe for the child to be with the dad or not. But if let's assume that the child is not safe to be with their dad, then the parent will still have the right to see the child, but under a certain area and under a certain agency's supervision to make sure that they are safe. But no one in Islam, no one has the right to actually separate the child from the father, from the father, and actually say, oh, I'll have the custody all to me, because that's a responsibility that the father has. All right, that's a first response. The only time where she can actually say, oh, the custody is to me, is if really he was a danger. And then in that situation, even a joint custody is not healthy for the child. And we would basically look into the situation. And then if experts said that it's not safe for the child to be with the father, for example, that's when the experts, and I mean also regarding the specialists in Islam, to actually look into the case and say, yes, it's not healthy for him to actually be around the child, etc. Then in that situation, we'll say, okay, well, you lost your custody over the child, and the custody is given to the mom. Generally speaking, the custody is given to the mom anyways. All right, the custody is given to the mom. And the only times that the mom loses, when the mom loses the custody over the child, all right, it doesn't go to the dad, it actually goes to her mom.
Oh,
Yep. Islamically,
or-
Islamically, the custody goes to your mom if you lose the custody. Let's say the mom was an addict, the custody goes to the mom. Now, here's the thing, is that sometimes the court might actually, I've had a case that called me from California. The daughter was basically, she was addicted, and the government took the baby away before the baby was even born. Literally, the baby, when the baby is born, on the spot, the baby is going to be taken away. Yep. So the mom, she basically said, well, the only thing that allows me to take the child is if I were to adopt the child. Is that permissible? The answer is yes, certainly. What about the legal documents? Adopt. So the grandmother is going to adopt the baby. So the grandmother will adopt the baby, but what about the legal documents? Can she claim the baby and basically give the name and etc. to herself? The answer is yes, but
Islamically.
absolutely, because the wajib here is to keep the baby. If the legal documents are basically my way to do what is fard, then I will go through it. But I will let the child know when they are mature enough to understand. When they're mature enough to understand, I'm not your real mom here. Your real mom she is your real mom. Then in that situation, those papers are nothing but a process. All right. And then that way, that'll give me the space to help the child live an Islamic life and live with the area that he is actually with, but do it in a legal way. Got it? All right, I don't know.
Why, like Jewish community, there is no single child of Jewish community can, public people can adapt, but the Muslims, we don't have that kind of rules. in
That's what I'm
place.
saying. Adoption. If we're talking about legal papers for the process, that's different than, for example, this child. Do I necessarily, this child, he's 7 years old. Do I have to tell him, hey, I'm not your mom, don't call me mom? No, you don't have to tell him that. They're not yet ready. They're 7 years old. They're not ready to understand that I'm your biological mom, but you can explain it to him. That's also mom. That's also mom.
So
That
you
not,
have two moms.
well, basically explain to him
Yeah.
that you would make him recognize, so he would not be in shock. There are different ways. What's the best way to approach it? Depends on the child. You don't want to, you can't give one answer, and not all kids are the same and not all circumstances are the same. But at the end of the day, doing that process and going through that process needs a lot of wisdom. So when we're talking about legal process and papers,
As a community, I mean, as a community, why Muslim community does not have a system?
there
in a
is,
place that if child was, parents got for any trouble.
we do
Muslim
actually
community
have,
can take it.
we
It's
do
still a
actually
problem.
have that. We do actually have that. It's still coming to the mind within the Muslim community. It's still yet, I would say, within this area of hesitation, but it is actually talked about within the Muslim community, and many are aware of it, and especially the Somali community. We
Yes,
have a
I'm gonna help
number,
really because
we
I
have a
work at
number-
school,
yep.
so we can propose some.
right? We have a number of Somalis, because of, the qaba'il and stuff, and they're
Yeah.
getting here. We've had a number of cases where somebody was addicted, and then they actually went through the adoption
Mhm.
type of process in order to help the family and help their cousin basically be in place. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. But we still have to make sure that we're
Something we can work on.
containing our children. All right, so I hope I answered those questions, and jazakumullah khairan, everyone. Right, so assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone, and barakallahu fikum. We took a. Did we answer all the questions?
I just have like a couple questions.
Alhamdulillah. So I guess we'll go pray, inshallah.
Ustad Aysha?
Yes.